Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight to kick off the PKD Foundation's new Advocacy Action Committee. My name is Nicole Haar, and I work on our organization's advocacy efforts and on our chapter volunteer programs. I'm very excited to launch this committee tonight, and I appreciate each of you for your dedication to advocacy and your desire to educate elected officials on issues that are important to the PKD community. So before I introduce our speaker tonight, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. All attendees are currently muted to ensure that we have good audio quality for everyone. If you have a question or a comment, you can type it into the question box located in the control panel on the upper right side of your screen. Feel free to type your questions anytime during the presentation. We will save time at the end of the presentation to address as many questions and comments as possible. We may not have time to get to all of our questions. However, your questions are very important to us. So if your question or comment is not addressed during the Q&A session, Karen has agreed to review them, and she will provide answers that we will post and also provide to all of our attendees. So let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Karen Thurman. Congresswoman Thurman served in the United States House of Representatives from 1993 to 2003, representing Florida's 5th Congressional District. During her time in Congress, she became a member of the influential Ways and Means Committee, which maintains jurisdiction and oversight of the Medicare and Medicaid program. Her moderate bipartisan record made her a national leader on health care policy as a member of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Health. She also served as a member of the Committees on Agriculture and Government Reform and Oversight. Prior to being elected to Congress in 1992, Congresswoman Thurman served in the Florida State Senate for 10 years. She also served as a member of the City Council and Mayor of Dunwoody, Florida. Before embarking on her career in elected office, Congresswoman Thurman taught elementary school mathematics in Marion County, Florida. Congresswoman Thurman is the principal partner at the TG&C Group Consulting in Washington, D.C. Karen, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. And I particularly want to give a shout to Nicole for putting this together, because I think that trying to put a group of folks together that have a common goal, and that's to get the message out of PKD and the foundation, is so important. So kudos to Nicole. And as you can see, Nicole is in the picture here with us with David, and in the center part is Fred Upton, who is the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and then myself, and then Jackie Hancock. So you can move on from there. And I guess, did we have a picture before that with Diana DeGette? Yep, there we are again. And this was a day that we spent on the Hill, and we were particularly pleased to be able to get in to see the two folks who actually in Congress that were responsible for doing a lot of heavy lifting to try to push this bill over the line, and in fact in the House they did with the Century 21. So they've been actively involved in this, and they have clearly been listening to so many patients and really respecting patients and their needs and family members and health caregivers to really have an idea of what folks are going through and why in this particular instance the Century 21 was really important. We can go to the next slide. I just want to remind you all that, you have the right to petition your Congress. It's the ability to readdress, and it's a part of our Constitution, and it's so important that we make sure that you're being heard. Because I can assure you that people on any other issue, as we have heard over and over again, they're going to the halls of Congress, they're going to their local members, offices within their states, they're going to their senators, and they're making sure that the issue that they're concerned about is being heard by those people who are making the decisions in D.C. So I'll just say this, if you won't talk about PKD, who will? Okay. I've put some things in, and as you know, this will all be available to you, this presentation. So one of the things that you first have to do is figure out who your representative is. And you just go to representative@house.gov, you'll put in your zip code and they can tell you, and then of course you can do the same thing in finding your senators at senator.gov. I'll also tell you there's another way to do it for those of you that are that even use telephone books anymore, but it used to be that they're all on the front of your telephone books as well, so just so you'll know that. The next thing that I would suggest is that you request a meeting, and you can do this in several ways. I always thought that a phone call into the office was particularly helpful because they got a real person on the phone and they could talk to somebody. And I know from talking with some of you and many of you in Orlando, I understand how you feel about this issue and the concern that you show. And I think that initial phone call, finding somebody in that office that actually answers the phone, asks some questions, and you get to kind of know them and they get to kind of know you, so you begin that make yourself known, who you are. You can also, though, do it by email, or you can do it by letter, or once you make that initial phone call, you can then follow up with an email or a letter. So what are some of the information that you want to do? You want to just provide them some really basic information. You want them to know what is PKD, how it impacts you and your family. And then, obviously, always, what can Congress do to help you? And as you know, constantly we're updating the legislative updates, giving you information, so you can always go to to the website at PKD and find out what legislation at the time is being talked about, what bills they're supporting, and you can find information out about those pieces of legislation as well. Okay. If you don't go and have a meeting, which I believe you should, you can always, keep in contact again by email or letter. So I'm going to so this year, one of the biggest pieces of legislation that has an impact on PKD, and by the way, a lot of, not just you, but many diseases, is the 21st Century Cures. Today was not our best day. There was an article that was put out recently on the Hill that said that because of time and depending on what happens with the election, how much they will be spending time in D.C. and trying to wrap up the end of the year. And because the Senate, so remembering the House has passed this, they're waiting for the Senate to do the same thing in their innovation program. So right now, if I would say to anything to you, that one of the first things that I would be doing right now would be contacting your 2 senators in your state and just telling them, look, they're all up for election. They're all very nervous about these elections, and things are very fluid right now. So getting in there and saying, look, we know that the House has passed this legislation. We know you're going back in November, and this is our #1 priority, is for you to pass and put on the President's desk the issue of 21st Century Cures / innovation, which is on the Senate side. And you want to let him or her know of your particular interests, and you want to ask, just as I did, you want specific action. You want them to make sure that this legislation is brought to the floor of the Senate before the new Congress comes in. Because if not, just so you'll know, it starts all over again. So we'll go through this whole introducing of a bill, having committee hearings on both the House and the Senate, and so we're in a situation where if we don't get it done this year, then we start all over again in 2017. And once you've done all of that and you're comfortable and you have gotten, either a vote, or if not a vote, if they did co-sponsor, we want to make sure that they know that you're watching this, and the best way to do that is by letting them know through a thank you or if they didn't do something, an explanation why they didn't do it. And I will make this this plea that I really would like you to make sure that the PKD Foundation knows of any responses you get so that they can pass that on to us, so that we can also be, putting together packages and making sure that these members, that when I see them or somebody else sees them, that we can thank them personally, but also so that we know where the responses and what their responses are, so that if there's issues out there that we're not aware of, and they're writing to you saying, well, this is the reason I can't do this, then at least we'll be able to formulate arguments to try to move this on. So hopefully we can do that. And I will say that right now, because it is so critical, and we've got about a 2.5, 3 week, 4 week, actually probably about 4 weeks now before they go back into session in November. So we've got a good lead time here to get some of this done. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Remembering that also that PKD is not a one-time issue, and I've stressed this before, that neither should your advocacy be one time. You need to make sure that you're signing up for these members and senators' electronic newsletters, getting their updates on the health, appropriations, and budget. You want, when you're calling into these offices, you may want to ask them, when is an upcoming town hall meeting, or particularly now with the campaigns on, when their next campaign event might be, and that you want to attend, and then you can mention your PKD interest in a larger forum sometimes, but sometimes if you can just, sometimes it might be that you're just pulling the aide off to the side and saying, look, I'm here because I'm with the polycystic kidney disease, and I want the member to understand how important this is. And then, just because we want to keep you in front and on the tip of their tongue at all times, we want to just do one issue at a time, right? So that we don't, and I think we've tried to do that, where we become very emphatic about, well, this is really what needs to be done, and keep them with one issue, and then that also gives you the opportunity to continue that relationship and going back to that representative or senator to discuss other issues that are of a concern, or other things that they might be doing or could be doing that will show their support to your cause. Okay. Yep. Okay. Now, I believe that this is probably one of the #1 issues that we're talking about today, and that is how we get you all involved, who obviously have already shown an interest, but it's also getting others involved, right? Because you want to keep that list of contacts. You want those family neighbors, or the family members, your neighbors, volunteers, officials, your dialysis buddies, physicians, nurses, researchers, all of them, and you want to keep all those contacts. You want to have a list. You want to get their emails. You want to get their phone numbers, or so that you might have to text to them or tweet something, or whatever your social media outlet is, or whether it's, putting something out on Facebook or whatever. Because what you really are trying to do is you want to turn that list into an advocacy contact list, and you want to make sure that they understand why you need their help. And there's going to be times that you can do this at a very leisurely time, or when things are just kind of, moving along, and you're just, trying to keep involved in it and understanding, all the issues that you want them to do. But then there's going to be a time when we might call Nicole and the team and say, look, we need a quick response right now. This is so important. They need to hear from you immediately because action is imminent, or it needs to be done quickly. We like to refer to that as wildfire. So because we want this wildfire to go out and we want people to understand it. You make up whatever you want to make it up to have people understand that this is an immediate action that's necessary, but you're able to communicate to them that it has to be done immediately because it could be tomorrow. Okay. And then you want to be specific, right, with your request. Whenever we would have meetings in our office, we would have people from all different interests and issues. And they would come in, and sometimes they were very organized, and they had a checklist, and they told you what they wanted, or sometimes they would just come in and talk, and you would say at the end of this, well, what is it that I can do for you? What is it that you want, that you need? And so we think that the ask is very vital. So, for example, in this situation, we want to be maybe specific about supporting the health innovation language, which is the biomarkers and surrogate endpoints, or it could be the guaranteed increased funding, which is really one of the issues that we're really dealing with right now. And so that they understand what you're asking for, because when you ask them at the end, how is your representative or how is your senator going to, are they going to co-sponsor it? Are they going to vote for it? If not, why not? And, you know, so they understand that you know that you're there for a reason, not just, you know, for no reason at all. You're there because you want an action taken. And, you know, and you're also going to be staying in touch with other PKD patients, and we just keep that, you know, rolling so that they understand, but you're not going to let them off the hook. You really want to get an ask for in there. Okay. And then it's, you know, spreading the word. The message to your advocacy tree. This is where you send your contacts, your text of what you sent to senators and representatives. Ask your contacts to personalize the message, but keep the ask for language. Request a copy from senators and representatives. Again, really important is to send the response to PKD Foundation. Let me just give you a quick, so a couple of days ago, Nicole and her team went out and sent out an issue on the immunosuppressant drug bill, which is a piece of legislation that would extend immunosuppressant drug coverage, and not just up to 36 months, but for the entire time of your transplant. So we got on the phone, and the alert went out. I had been talking with the two offices, Representative Burgess and Representative Kine's offices, their staff, and PKD sent a letter in showing the support for the piece of legislation, and then an alert went out, and I think it was 346 people actually responded. And I called them yesterday, day before yesterday, and let them know that, and then as we get a better breakdown of who those folks were and who they actually spoke to, then I can take that information and be able to use it in talking to the offices of folks that did receive correspondence and asked if they are in fact going to sign on to this piece of legislation. And again, that's why sending this response to PKD is really important, because it gives us some other things to be able to work on. So then I guess we go to the next one, which is kind of what I just talked about a little bit, but on the 216 advocacy. Yep. So here's the things we've been doing or have been talking about. In the report language in the appropriations bills, there was language in there that included several different diseases. PKD was not one of those included. So one of the things that we're trying to do now is to see if we can get the report language to include PKD. The other issue that I know is very familiar to all of you is the additional funding for the NIH. In the Senate bill, we actually have seen where they have taken it to $2 billion. In the House appropriations, the NIH is like about, I think it's 1.25. So there's a difference. So what we're really trying to do is to make sure that we stay at the funding that the Senate has set. And so that's something that can be pushed by our letters just saying, please succeed to what the Senate has given us. And then, of course, the 21st century, which we've talked about, really trying to make the Senate, so it's really the health research innovation. On the Senate side, my idea today is that we really need to reach out to the senators. I'd rather you focus your time on that, on those members, than some of the others at this point. Unless you really do want to do something maybe with the leadership in the House to make sure that they understand that this is this should be a priority, because I know it has been in the past, which is why the number of the bill is so low. Again, the immunosuppressant drug bill we just talked about. You all did a great job in getting those responses out there and into the offices, and I think that's great. And I appreciate that, and we'll, like I said, we'll do a better breakdown and know exactly whose members were contacted so that we can do go back and talk with those folks as well. Okay, so that's 216. Clearly 217 is coming up quickly here. We're going to have a new Congress and a new administration, and this means we have all new players and, in some cases, new priorities, just depending on who comes in and what their knowledge is and what their issues are, and what kinds of what will be put on the agenda both in the House and the Senate. We're going to have some of the same issues, and probably many of them will be the same issues, but there's going to be different bill numbers. So it's, again, just trying to stay up with the with the alerts that are going out through PKD, and watching for what kinds of things would be what we'd like to be advocating on behalf of PKD patients, and again, starting to continue to make those introductions. And particularly if you are in a state or district where it has changed any of your members on the House side or your senators, which is very, very, I think there's going to be some new ones out there. So we need to pay attention, and we'll have a whole new list of all of the new members and can get that to you. So I think that that's important. And then we will continue to monitor and look at what any of the new or other issues are that might be out there to pass along and to get that, advocacy tree going, so we can make sure that your voices are heard. I do want to say, that that's so, just being able to make a phone call in there, to talk to somebody, to build those relationships, and so that they understand that this is so critical, and it's critical to the people that they're representing. And there is nothing more important, honestly, than a constituent making that phone call. We can do all we can do up there, and we can certainly pass along information, and as we get information, we can make sure that they're doing what we're asking them to do and pass that on as well. But coming from you makes all the difference in the world. And then the only other thing that I can say is that we're just be monitoring and seeing what other issues might come up. It depends on what the priorities become. And the sad part of this is that it looks like, well, it's going to happen. Fred Upton will not be the chair of the Energy and Commerce this next year because the House rules are such on the Republican side that they can only serve 3 terms, so that's 6 years, and so we're going to have a whole new chairman sitting at Energy and Commerce. Now, hopefully, obviously, people that have been on that committee are still going to be on that committee, and whoever takes over the chair will have been a member during this time. And Fred's not going away; he's just not going to be the chair, so he's not going to be setting the agenda. So that's why I'm suggesting there could be new and other issues coming up. So again, that's the next slide. Just remember, you have that right. Others get their views heard and get their concerns met because they're persistent. So I just want you to be personal and persistent, be polite, and just remember, if you won't talk about PKD, who will? We don't know what the future holds, but we know that your voices must be heard in this issue, and it's just imperative that you become so active. And I appreciate all that you have done so far, but I might just push you a little bit harder as the time goes on, because I think once you find the successes that you have because of your advocacy, it'll be easier every time you pick up the phone and make that phone call. So thank you, and if you have any questions or about this or what might be in store for the next year or at least the next month, we'll be glad to try and answer those tonight.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing all of that information. We do have some questions, so I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes to get their question typed in. Before we got Karen back on board there a few minutes ago, I had asked Jennifer if she would share a little bit about her experience, so I thought using your voice, as Karen just talked about, was a perfect segue into that. So Jennifer, you're unmuted, and if you wouldn't mind to share a little bit about your experience, we would appreciate that.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, I met Karen at the convention in June, and she was very inspirational, and so thank you for everything that you do. What I did was in Omaha, Nebraska, we started with the 2 U.S. senators, and so I stopped by each of their offices and found out who the scheduler is, then emailed the scheduler and set up an appointment of when we could meet with one of the aides. So we never did meet with the senators, but Karen had said at convention that it's okay to meet with the legislative aides, which we did. And one senator's group is very organized and the other one wasn't quite so organized, so we had to really follow up. But what we did is before we had our meeting, we created a PowerPoint, and in that PowerPoint, it just set our agenda, and we had pictures with it, and you could do it on a laptop or just print your PowerPoint. But we explained what polycystic kidney disease is and what polycystic liver disease is. We had pictures of a polycystic kidney versus a normal kidney because you just need to explain what the disease is, and talked about kidney disease and Medicare numbers. Then we had articles that from our local newspaper, from the Omaha World Herald. And so several of the legislative aides remembered reading those articles, so that was helpful. Then we had a slide that said, how can the senator help? And we asked them to join the Congressional Kidney Caucus, and in that slide we put what other Nebraska representatives were on the caucus, and so who was already a member. And then we asked them to vote for 21st Century Cures and to support funding for NIH, and then we also asked them to come to the walk. And then we had people there that talked about their personal stories, and one of the legislative aides had actually donated her kidney to a family member, not with PKD, but so we really told our story. So then now I feel that when I email them, they know who we are, and then they can share that information with the senators.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jennifer. We really appreciate that. So we are getting some questions, and I want to get to those. A couple of things that were mentioned that I want to address right quick before we get to those. Karen mentioned the advocacy alert that we just sent out about immunosuppressive drug coverage. We had 346 people that responded to that alert in less than 24 hours. Usually, we will have 1,000 to 1,200 responses to our advocacy alerts. So by the time we're finished and we post on social media, we will definitely have a lot more responses, and that is, that is because of people like you that are really dedicated to advocacy, and we really appreciate that. Jennifer mentioned a PowerPoint, and we do have a PowerPoint. I have a question that I see now about, can we get the PowerPoint slides that Jennifer used? Yes. We have some slides that talk about, in general, what PKD is and what the PKD Foundation does, and I can share those with you. We did a little customizing, and like she said, they put some pictures in there, but if you do want those slides, you can ask me and I will give them to you. We do keep them updated. The information, is not the same year over year, so anytime you want it, just ask me for it, and I'll make sure that you have the most updated copy. So let's get to some questions. What happens with the petitions on change.org? Who do they go to, and what effect do they have?
Petition.org. I have to think about that, and I may not know the answer to that. I guess I haven't. Go ahead.
It's change.org, I believe. I see that on Facebook a lot. People will post on Facebook and ask you to go to change.org and sign a petition.
Okay. Well, then it probably, if that's so, and it's on a particular issue, then it's probably being sent to the offices of the members of Congress and the Senate. Would be my guess, and I will say that based on what we're seeing and today as versus when I was there, there's a lot more social media being used pushing issues, and there's been a lot of articles about that. So I would think that change.org probably is pushing activism, and then that would be given the opportunity then to be pushed into those offices.
Okay.
I don't know what particular issues, and I don't know if they do it, like if it's a larger issue, like maybe a tax bill or an energy bill, but like 21st Century Cures might have been like a change.org because it's a little bit broader and has, more, content in it than just like one particular issue.
Okay. So another question we have is, what is the Kidney Caucus?
So the Kidney Caucus is a member from the Democratic side and a member from the Republican side on the House side that is made up, so they have a chair and a vice chair, or I guess they're really called co-chairs. And so it's and usually it's done bipartisan, and it's members that have an interest in this issue or an issue that deals with kidneys, and they're like-minded, and they come together maybe quarterly, and they have speakers sometimes. Sometimes they talk about issues. But it's just like-minded members who have an interest in the area of kidneys.
Okay, and can you talk a little bit about why it's important for us to know if our representative is on the Kidney Caucus? And
sure, because it shows an interest in the issues, and it shows that, well, one, in your case, in the case of PKD, if they're not on it today and they get on it, guess who and you're asking them for them to participate and be a member, then what issue is going to be most important to them? It's the issues that are being brought up by the polycystic kidneys patients or families, because guess what? That's the reason they've joined it. So they can be an advocate for you as well. But it's important because so like a piece of legislation like the immunosuppressant drug legislation, that's where those co-chairs are the first people that are going to go to when introducing a piece of legislation that has an impact on your issue. They're going to go directly to those members. So that starts the conversation for a member to be able to start getting signatures to become co-sponsors of pieces of legislation. It also is a place for them to have a serious dialogue about issues affecting kidneys. And you know, I know that, for example, PKD is very actively involved also with the National Kidney Foundation. So not just what's at PKD, but there are other areas that the Kidney Caucus will be involved in, but it's also helping organizations like the Kidney Foundation, PKD, and others to get their voices out there. And I think it's a good monitoring of who might be your first responders on issues that are of a concern of kidneys. If that made sense.
Yes, thank you. What is organ donation HR 4616? Do you?
Ooh, I know that that's one that has been actively involved with, and I think that's being done by Gus Bilirakis, maybe, and it's the living donor. Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm seeing a note from Tom Marion from Pennsylvania and Jim McDermott from Washington.
Are the co-chairs? Right.
Is that?
I don't know, but this is different because now we're talking about an actual piece of legislation.
Oh, okay.
And
sorry.
And Tom Marion and Jim McDermott are the co-chairs of the
Kidney Caucus?
Currently of the Kidney Caucus
okay,
now.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. And I will tell you that Jim McDermott is leaving Congress. He's retiring. So there is a question right now of who might take over the organization itself. And there's a couple of names that have been talked about. Anything from a John Lewis, who's been actively involved in many of the issues, and a couple of others, and I'm not sure who they are, but that all of this will be reorganized again in 2017. But to the question about the organ donation bill,
I think it's Living Donor Protection Act. I just Googled it.
Yes.
I just can't ever remember the numbers, so sorry.
Yep. And I think it's on your website, Nicole. I think that was one of the ones that you went after. Yeah. So, and I think it's to help for those people that are willing to give an organ, and it's,
Yes, there is definitely information on our website, and if you have questions about it specifically, I can certainly address those and get you some resources with more information. So here's another question. Should our follow-up contact with our senator's office be now or right after the election?
Well, I think if you've already contacted them, let me back up. If you have not contacted them about Century 21 or / innovation over on the Senate side, then you need to contact them now, not after the election, because as soon as this election is over, I think they go back into session and they're going to be concentrating on finishing the spending bills, so that they've done a CR, which just lets government we didn't go into default, we didn't shut down. But now they'll have to come back in and they'll start looking at what the real appropriations bills will look like, and so that's why it's important both on the side of the idea for funding for NIH, to making sure that the Senate stays strong on the $2 billion that they've allocated in the appropriations. And it is also important that they understand that when they go back, you want them to talk in the Senate side to Mitch McConnell and to the leadership over there that this piece of legislation has gone through the House and we're not we do not want to see it sit in the Senate and fail and start this process all over again in 2017. And that's what will happen. If it doesn't get passed in this lame duck, then we start the whole process over again.
So 21st Century Cures needs to be a pretty big priority for us.
Yep,
Definitely.
I think that and the $2 billion. And the $2 billion for NIH, making sure that the Senate does not keeps the funding at $2 billion and does not go to what the House has put out at 1.25.
Okay. So I'm getting several questions about, do we have, it's hard sometimes to explain these different pieces of legislation, or is there a packet that you can share? And the answer to that is yes. Every piece of legislation that we have chosen to be a priority, we have a legislative brief that is posted on our webpage that you can print off and take with you. We also have materials that are posted that you can use to create like a leave behind packet, so that when you go to a meeting, you can leave some information behind. And if you do have a meeting, if you will let me know, we will package all of this up and mail it to you. So you have all of this information in a folder that you can use for yourself to prepare for the meeting, and also to have a leave behind after your meeting, so that you're leaving behind information about all of the asks that you have that day. So I hope that answers, we have several questions about that, so I hope that answers that. And if I'm not, and you're looking for something, just email me and I will help you find it, because I know sometimes our resources are somewhat tricky to find, and I'm happy to help you.
And as you go through this process and you start meeting with members, or if you're hearing things out in the community or about other pieces of legislation that might be being talked about, listen, all the eyes and ears that we can have on what goes on in Congress is important. And you may walk into a senator's office or a House member's office, and they may say, oh, I just want you to know I have this great idea. I want to pass this, I want to talk to you about this. Let me throw this back at PKD. What do you guys think about this? If you hear that kind of response, let us know, because that means we've got an advocate there, and it could be that could be, the best thing since sliced bread, or there could be some pitfalls that we need to be very careful about. So we want to, it's kind of a, both. But the other part, and to Nicole, what Nicole said, you want to keep it very simple. So I wrote down just a couple of things. So on the idea of just on the NIH part of this. This is a very simple thing to say. NIH conducts research, and this is really important to people with PKD. Additional NIH funds will improve the chance of finding both a treatment and cure. Please support an increase of at least $2 billion for NIH in the next fiscal year. Simple as that. Not long. Hopefully it's easy to understand, and you just want to be really straightforward with them so that when you walk out of there, they don't have any questions as to what you were asking for.
Okay, here's a really good question. It says, I have done advocacy work for other issues and found it very difficult task to get to the right folks to set up a meeting, even with an aide, especially in regards to our very busy U.S. senators. Do you have any additional tools to use? Can I identify myself as a volunteer representative of the PKD Foundation? Need a way to get their attention and present myself as a credible advocate.
Well, I think this is where when we talk about keeping in touch with them, right? Letting them get to know you. The first time you walk in there, they're going to, they might say, okay, what's your issue? Why are you here? And that may be the last time they hear from you. If you continue that relationship and you continue to put yourself in front of the staff, you know what? They're not going to be able to turn away from you so quickly because of the fact that you're doing this more often, and they're getting to understand, that this is very important to you and you're not going away. I think the other part of this is know who to ask for. You don't want, look, I think that staff on the Hill is so important. And when you've got members of Congress or U.S. senators dealing with 10,000 different issues, it makes it really difficult. So one of the things that you might want to ask when you call is, or the first time you call, and you pick up the phone and you say, listen, I really want to talk to somebody. I'm a volunteer with the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation, and I would like to be able to have a conversation with the health aide. Okay, and that's important because all the issues that we're talking about are going through their health aides. These are people that have been designated in that member's office as a person who does in fact, that takes care of that issue and will be the one that actually goes in to talk to the senator or the member about what they're hearing, especially as issues start to come up. So if 21st Century comes up and you've been talking to the health LA, or you can say, they might say to them, and listen, we heard from so-and-so and so-and-so in Nebraska, and this is really important to them. You also can try to go to the websites because they may also list the aid by issue, and the same way with the senators. And the same on the senator side too. So those are two issues. But the one thing that I would say to them is that you really want to talk to their aide.
Okay, very good suggestions.
And I will also say, if you're going to do this, and before you do it, and you just want to talk with us, Bob and I are available. Bob works with me. We're always available to help Nicole and answer questions, or if you're going to be in DC, or I know that over the past year, as I've been working with some of you, we've tried to do some like outreach, as Jennifer said, to invite them to the walk. We actually have tried to get some folks in different districts to get to the walks, but it was a little bit late by the time we kind of got on board. So those might be other ways that we can be helpful at both at the local level, finding out who at the local level, because, oh, by the way, they also have in their offices, in the staffs in the state, they have people that are responsible for going to different events as they're invited. So if the member can't come, you can always have somebody, and they'll always be glad to stand up and say, hey, I'm from Senator so-and-so office, and we just wanted to, hope that you have a successful event, and that the senator wants you to make sure that you understand that he couldn't be here or she couldn't be there, but that, and may even say, these are some of the things that we have done. We're on the immunosuppressant bill, or we're, doing, we're a big part of the innovation, or we voted for Century 21, because this is a great way for them to get a message out to people that they might not normally see.
So we've had a few comments about relationships at the local level, and our advocates feel it's important to know someone in the home offices as well as the DC offices. So is there any comments you would like to make about that?
Whoever said that is absolutely right. You need both. It's both. But the person at home can also be the person, as if you come to Washington, that can help you set up those meetings as well. And I wouldn't be discouraged by any means. And if you don't meet with the member or the senator. But what I would say, good staff, good local staff, will pass on this information to the DC office. So if you're planning on going to see or going to DC, I'd pick up that phone and I'd call that person that you've met at that local office and say, hey, I'm going to DC. Who's the person I need to talk to there, and can you help me get an appointment?
Okay, sorry, my home phone is ringing in the background. So someone has suggested go to their town hall meetings. Can you let people know how to find out about town hall
Call
meetings?
the offices. Yep, just call their offices or go on their websites and ask for their schedule.
Okay.
Simple as that. Say, I'm very interested. I'd like to meet the member, and are you doing any town hall meetings? Is there a political event? Because this is the time for politics right now. I mean, that's what I would be doing. Or, as I said earlier, a lot of the times their public schedules will be on their websites, and they should be able to. You'll be able to look and see what's there. But I would encourage you to go. And the other place that you might look is maybe even in the local paper.
Okay.
Or Google them. Where is my member going to be today?
You can Google anything, right?
Exactly. That's what everybody tells me.
Exactly. So I've got a couple of questions here about the slides from tonight. Yes, I will definitely post those on our website, and I will send everyone that's attended a link. We also have recorded this, and we will try to get rid of my rambling in the middle when we lost Karen for a minute and post the recording for everyone. I've gotten quite a few comments, Karen, thanking you and saying that it's a great session and that they're very motivated. So greatly appreciate those comments. A couple people said they met you at National Convention and they really appreciated the time that you spent with them. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. But more importantly, I want to thank you all for just taking some time from your day today to join in. And like I said, I was blown away when Nicole told me that 346 people had already responded to the immunosuppressant, and when I told the members, staff that are the sponsors of it, they said, wow, this is just great. So kudos to you all.
Yes, definitely. I did get another question. Can we get a list of the Kidney Caucus members? And yes, I will send that out to everyone so that you know who those are. And I had
you can go, I'm sorry, you can go online and get that. I mean, you can just write in U.S. Representative Kidney Caucus and it'll pop right up.
There's a link on our website to committees, and so they're listed, but you know, again, sometimes it's hard to find those things, so I'm happy to send out that link and help you find the information you're looking for. I did also get a couple of questions just really quick. I know we're at our 8 o'clock hour about the advocacy alerts, and I'm happy to help you with those. I hope that everyone that's on tonight does receive our advocacy alerts. If you're not sure, you can certainly send me an email and I will look it up and make sure that you're receiving those. It is a very easy way to send a quick email about issues, and it gives you all of the information that you need. It also provides a link that you can forward to friends and family. So if you want to, you know, spread the wildfire, as Karen mentioned earlier, you can do that right through the alert as well. And you can, you know, I can also send out the link to that so that if you want to share that with your friends and your family and they want to receive our alerts, then you can share that link and they can sign up to receive them too. So I think we've addressed, Karen's addressed actually, most of the questions. I will go through them again and make sure. Karen has agreed to take a look at any questions or comments that we did not get a chance to answer and provide an answer. So if we miss anything, I will send it to you, Karen, and I will post the answers that Karen gives so that everyone on the webinar tonight has a chance to read those.
Okay.
Let's see if I left out anything. Again, I know that several people were making comments about requesting a meeting. So if you do want to try to get a meeting before everybody heads back to DC, please let me know. I'll be happy to give you information to help you prepare for your meeting and also that you can leave behind from your meeting as well.
And don't forget, once you have that meeting, that you get that information back to the foundation, because that'll help, again, that helps everybody with the ability to continue that conversation. I mean, I can be just walking through the halls of Congress and run into somebody, and it'll be in my mind, and I'll say, oh, I know you got a letter from PKD, or I understand there was an email sent to you. Have you done anything on this piece of legislation?
Yes, definitely. I'll get all that information to Karen. So you can reach me. Most of you, I think, have my work email. It's NicoleH@pkdcure.org. And if you can't remember that, we have an email set up, pkdadvocacy@pkdcure.org. So if you need to get a hold of me, feel free to email either one of those or pick up the phone and call the organization and ask for me. I'd be happy to chat with you anytime. So again, I just want to thank Karen for spending the time to prepare for this and giving us such a great presentation with this information tonight. And also I want to thank everyone that is on for your time and spending part of your evening with us. We really appreciate it. And just remember, we're here when you need us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone.
Good night.